Welcome to another episode of the Dentology podcast, where we discuss the business of dentistry. In this podcast series, we'll be discussing all the non-clinical aspects of dentistry, from goodwill values, finance, marketing, how to buy and sell a dental practice mindset, through to where you can invest your money in team management issues. My name is Andy Acton, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Strevens. Let's jump straight into it. What remarkable experience and depth of experience Lisa has.
Really interesting. Really interesting. We've known her for a while and we talked to her and stuff like that. But it's another one, isn't it? You don't really know a lot about the history. We know her as we know her, but that history of the GP thing and how she got into it, and fascinating. I think a lot of people could learn stuff of how to communicate with people.
And also, it's a real learnt experience. She's a real been there, done it type person. But yeah, I thought it was the two things that stood out for me was what she had to say about dental awards and how valuable they are.
They can be useful.
That interesting take on how they get used. I think people would enjoy that piece. But also that mad thing with the SAS.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone's just listening, you have to wait for the SAS bit, because that's quite interesting.
I say just remarkable how. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, that people are people, and you can learn things from everybody in different situations.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it was a cracking.
It was really good, really good,
really good lesson.
Some good lessons in there.
Here we are again, mate. How you doing?
Oh, very good indeed. Looking forward to this one. Should be fun. Entertaining.
Today we're joined by Lisa Bainham. And Lisa is Practice and Business Development Manager for over 24 years. Can you believe it?
She must have started when she was about 8.
Exactly. She's also the president of the Practice Managers Association, ADAM, and we'll come to this at the end, but she says she hangs out with ex-SAS soldiers.
Better not upset her.
Which is just the coolest thing ever.
I know people.
Honestly, I think people are going to want to stay tuned in just to hear what that's all about.
Yeah, even if so we leave it right at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you've got to listen to the rest of it, just in case you just want to buzz in and buzz out.
That's a real trailer, that, isn't it?
There you go.
So, hi, Lisa. How you doing?
Really well, thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Good. So, just to kick things off, you got into dentistry through qualifying as a dental nurse, but I understand you found the clinical side all a bit gross. Is that right?
Yeah. To be blunt.
Not great if you're a dental nurse. So why did you choose dentistry? What was it that piqued your interest?
It really appealed to me. I mean, most people that I know that have come in, especially from a DCP level, haven't had like a childhood dream to become a dental nurse generally. But it was something when I was deciding what to do at a careers event, I thought, actually really interested to know that side of things. So I kind of did it despite all my teachers wanted me to go on and do A-levels and things like that. But I was a bit stubborn and wanted to get into more of a workplace situation than an education, really. Little did I know that, it would be a really good path for me to take. But yeah, I qualified after about 3 years, and after training at Stafford Hospital, and just thought it's all right, it's interesting, but I didn't enjoy the clinical side particularly. So found myself wanting to hang out on the desk more and asking about practice managers and what's this and can I do that. So I suppose I've always been sort of inquisitive as to how things run. So that kind of led me to kind of explore that side of it more than the clinical dentistry side.
Right, yeah.
Avoiding blood.
Exactly. But then you actually stepped away from dentistry for a bit and worked in a GP surgery. Is that right?
Yeah, that took a little turn that I wasn't, particularly planning, but I wanted to get into some experience with more on the practice manager side because, 18, I was cocky and thought I could do anything. So I actually accepted a position while I was looking for a dental job. I offered to cover maternity leave at GP surgery quite close to home. So yeah, that was, and the practice, this was at a time when the GP surgeries kind of pushed aside the practice managers and brought in bank managers to actually run the business as a business,
right?
Instead of the nice village GP practice type of situation. Yeah. So I got to know business side, but there was also a practice manager side. This guy who started me off, he loved it because he just gave me all his work to do. And he was like, you crack on with that. So quite soon I was actually doing so much. But it was all about timing, I think, really, because at the point, the building I'm actually in now, the old surgery, you'll get where I'm going with this from that, I'm sure. We were a lovely GP practice, but they were building a huge fancy medical centre, massive. It got everything in it, just literally 5 minutes away. And they wanted somebody, and I'd try not to stereotype people here, but imagine about 15 part-time receptionists that did a few hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and we literally stopped at 3:00, did the shutters, turned the phones off for sherry break. I'm not kidding.
Wow,
not
okay.
kidding.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Wow.
But that's kind of where a lot of doctors' practices were back in kind of 95, 96.
Perhaps it needs to be reintroduced. Perhaps
Sherry
that might
breaks.
help the GP practices now, the old sherry break.
Can you imagine all the stories, honestly? But yeah, so we built this huge mega medical centre, but of course we'd got all the reception team. It wasn't digital, there was no computers. It was all done in a book. There was nothing technical about it at all. So we were going to this, complete contrast. So the business manager and even the practice manager, who absolutely lovely, thought, how the hell are we making this transition? And then I'm going, I'd do it. So I helped with the transition over to the GP practice, and ended up staying longer than the maternity leave because they kind of, I hoped, I like to think that they saw potential and see what I was doing. I was probably a bit of a mug, but I was fine. I was getting the experience. So yeah, I really started, and it's not massively different from the business side because, you've got contracts and you've got, you've got that contact with the NHS and things like that. So then we were wanting to rent out the old building, and along came a dentist who'd moved from Birmingham and was chatting to the business manager, and he happened to say, one of my girls actually was a dental nurse, but if you're looking for a practice manager, she might be worth talking to. So I was a bit offended that he might want to get rid of me. And he was like, I don't, but I know this is a good opportunity for you.
That's good.
So
good.
Yeah, so I spoke to
and he
Steve
got rid of the competition as well.
Yeah.
I spoke to Steve Lomas and said, I agreed. We didn't have any patients. It was me, him, and a nurse. And I said to my business manager at the time, I said, look, I'll do it for you. But if I don't like it, I'm coming back. And actually, 24 years later, I'm still threatening to go back.
So just in terms of the geography, Lisa, then, so the building you're in, the old surgery dental practice where you were with Steve still now, that was where you worked in the GP practice. You then moved to the new site and you then went back to where you are now, which was an empty building, which was the start of a dental practice.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like a homecoming.
Wow. It's incredible, isn't it? That, you started there, you moved up the business onto another area and then came back.
What's that thing, karma?
Yeah. But you were saying in your kind of explanation about kind of GPs and being similar with NHS contracts, but commercially, is there a significant difference? Because whilst lots of dental practices have an NHS component, we know that they're independent practices in their own right, whereas obviously GPs, they don't own their own goodwill, they're just delivering services purely for the NHS. Was there a difference in kind of mindset and attitude between the GPs and dentists?
It was quite different, to be honest. I struggled. I think my time there, from a patient experience point of view, made me, it kind of enabled me to know what I didn't want from a customer service point of view for our patients. Because again, without stereotyping, you've got that doctor's receptionist type vibe that's quite common, unfortunately. And the mindset in a GP practice is quite often these patients should be grateful to come and see us. Whereas than when we're looking at, an NHS dental practice, which actually for the first 5 years, we had to help to set up the practice with the condition. We stayed within the NHS for 5 years. But even still, it was a completely different ball game from, a business point of view. So yeah, that was very, very different. And you have to change your mindset to go, we're grateful that these patients are choosing us. And then obviously that sets you up for when you then do your 5 years and go private. So yeah, the mindset, and I still see it today, the mindset of very, very NHS practices, not in all of them, but quite often when we take a new team member on that's come from a very NHS practice, there is this vibe quite often of patients, well, they should be grateful we can get them in. Whereas obviously, as we know, private, we're very grateful that these patients choose us.
Interesting, isn't it? That's an interesting difference. Absolutely, and I suppose you're right, isn't it? If you're NHS and people will come through the doors, you sort of almost like they just become a commodity if you're not careful and not people.
And I guess when you get to a size that you are, where you have a team of people, any new member joining that team, I think teams often work like tribes, so they behave in a particular way. So when somebody new comes into it, they just adopt the behaviours of that tribe. So arguably, I know the world's slightly different now, it's easier than it was, but at the beginning when you first started and there was just you, Steve and one other, trying to get that culture from the very beginning, get people to understand that we're here to serve, we don't have a right to exist. That must have been quite challenging in the early days.
I think as we built it up and we'd got these, me and Steve, I'd never admit it, but we hit it off straight away. And we had the same, his clinical standards and my patient journey, because we didn't call it patient journey then, we called it, customer service then. My vibes on that and his really aligned with what he wanted to do, and it was just really good general dentistry. Yes, what to come was on a different level, but at that point it was just delivering really, really good NHS dentistry.
Out of interest, Lisa, the nurse, was she a qualified nurse or someone you trained to be a nurse, and did she come with some hang-ups that you had to iron out?
No, she was. She came as a qualified nurse. She'd been doing it a few years. Steve needed someone that, knew what they were doing. Although the whole thing for us was a learning curve. But I think from that very start, every time we took on a new team member, I suppose we always had this, is it the right fit? It was never, we got accused once of when we started to take on more people and took on a couple of trainees, and the training provider said to me, your problem is that your standards are too high and you expect too much.
That's not your problem.
And I just went, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What a lovely problem to have.
Yeah. They said, don't say it's a cardiologist, do they?
No.
Can you imagine? Yeah, so it was just building it up, but I think we've always stayed really true to what we set out to do. And we did stay NHS until 2003, and then we became a practice plan practice. And that just took off. The conversion, because we'd provided such a great service, the conversion was very, very easy, very few drop-offs. So we were really happy with that, and we just built on that, each year really, and kept those standards in sight that we wanted to maintain.
Fabulous. So obviously now you're on the practice management side of things, and practice management is one of these kind of all-encompassing terms that ranges from people management, training, strategic planning, financial control, marketing, sales. It's a real mixed bag. What was the element of practice management that you really got drawn to? What was it that interested you, or still does interest you?
I suppose it's I'm the boss, I'm in charge. Do and no, it's not.
You're a control freak.
It was I think it was just being able to learn all of those things, like you say, a bit of the marketing, some of the accountancy, some of the HR, all of these things. actually makes your life pretty, your job pretty exciting, to be honest, and varied. When you start getting a big team, that's when you go, oh my God, what have I done? Yeah. But it's a nice problem to have, I suppose. But yeah, practice managers, I suppose in the early days when, bearing in mind I was like 19, 20, it was quite good because Steve didn't know what he was doing either. But I think as long as you've got the right, like I say, the vision and the morals and the drive, you can actually, excuse me, sorry, I am recovering from COVID again. You can have that drive to, the position will be as much as you allow it to be. And it does, in my opinion, come from the relationship with a practice manager and an owner. And one of the things I do with the clients that I look after now and support, I try and get that relationship as healthy as I can. And then everything's pretty easy, to be perfectly honest. And we work out boundaries and what people are comfortable with letting them do and what they can do to make the dentist life easy. And it's just getting that relationship, because you have to be on the same page. There's no room for discrepancies. I mean, me and Steve will have a little argue about stuff, but I generally win.
Of course.
But no, we're a good balance. We're a really good balance.
But you need that though, don't you?
But the thing is,
I
was going to say, in a good relationship, you should be able to have disagreements where you're both pushing because you believe you've got a better idea, and then you come to a kind of decision. And I think those sorts of conversations, weirdly, are easier in good relationships, because otherwise it's like it's nibbling and petty and biting and arguing. Whereas if you respect one another and there's that real trust, you can have those conversations because you both genuinely think you've got a better idea.
Or it's Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I read a few months ago, I read a book called Radical Candor, and we don't have to be radical. You can just be, use candor in a healthy way, and as long as you both know it's coming from the right place, actually you can tell each other off or disagree, and we both know, and we can talk about that a bit later with the SAS thing, but we both know that we come at things from two different angles, but with the same goal.
But there's power in that as well, isn't it?
The understanding is the most important thing, isn't the fact of, we've done it with our team. I remember one guy we had, and we would talk to him in a certain way, and he would always nod. And then when we sort of realised that actually he just doesn't get what we're talking about because he's wired differently, and once we sorted that out, it was so much better because we realised that we might as well have been talking Japanese or something, because he would just nod, but he just wouldn't get it because it wasn't phrased or presented in a way that his brain worked on it. So it is fascinating, but you can only do that if you know the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And clients.
But but the bedrock is what you said, it's relationships. Yeah. And that kind of is everything, isn't it?
Yeah. The team want to see that they're being led. I know, the CQC and everyone's well led, everyone should be well led. But actually that was before CQC come up with that, that Chloe. Being well led breeds a really nice, healthy culture. And we've always had, most of our team are what we call our lifers. They're with us forever. In fact, I'd say probably about 60% of my team have been over sort of 10, 15, 20 years.
Says a lot about the business.
That speaks volumes about the culture, because people don't stick around if it's crap. For sure. If it's not much fun and it's not a good environment, they'll go.
Oh, 100%. We've all, listened to loads of webinars about recruitment and retaining staff and things, but a lot of people are doing it a little bit too late. They've already gone. It's like, they've already, what's that phrase? They've left, good shut in the door once the horse has left the barn.
Oh yeah, the horse has bolted.
Yeah.
We can learn from it, and you should learn from it. But generally, treat your team so that they don't really look elsewhere. And we've always had a very, very set pathway for the team to grow. And there's staff that have come and we've encouraged them to do more of what they want to do, to the point where, because we don't have people leave, sometimes you get nurses or reception team that come up to that ceiling, and unless one of us pops off, that's kind of it. But we do try in our practice to make sure everybody has their own sense of belonging, and they know that they actually make a big difference in whatever, part of the business. I mean, my job is, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I'd say I've got 4 or 5 team members who could walk into a practice and manage a practice easily, because that's how I brought them on. And I've never been discouraging for the sake of, well, that's my job, or it's like, you want to do that? Brilliant. Just like my business manager did to me. It's good. It shows.
It is a skill, though, isn't it, that bit? Because the danger is you end up, what is it, you delegate or abdicate. And I think the problem is sometimes people think they're brilliant delegators, but actually they're fantastic abdicators, and all they do is just give people stuff and then watch them fail and then kick them for failing. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. No one ever told me how to do this. So I think it's a real skill to be able to do that.
I think so, and it's kind of not just giving them the job and abandoning them. It's kind of getting them involved in it rather than kind of go, okay, you can deal with this crap, And a lot of, I always say to the clients I go out to, we have a monthly meeting, but my clinical team and my reception team, they kind of manage themselves because we've set the KPIs, and I won't bore everybody with all of that, but we set the KPIs and we set the boundaries and we set the expectations, and actually they'll come to me with a solution and kind of go, oh, do you know what? The conversion rate was down a few percent last month. Actually, it's because of X, Y, and Z. And we've put this in place to make sure it's better next month. So they manage themselves, which is
what it should be. We used to have in a bank, didn't we? We used to try and foster a thing called exception reporting. So it was the fact of, this is your parameters, this is your job, and basically don't want to know anything about it until it goes outside of that, because I don't really need to continually keep managing you. So we just say it's exception reporting, and we bring it here in the fact of we just say no surprises. We say, if you've got something, tell us about it. Don't just suddenly present it to us, because we would much prefer you to let us know, because we might be able to help you before it gets to that point where we've got a problem. So no surprises for us.
It's not difficult if you think about it like that, is it? But the reality is it doesn't happen in a lot of practices, unfortunately.
And also your 25 years of experience. So for you, it sounds very straightforward, but you've built this team, you've developed them, you've developed over that period of time. And I know, you alluded to it, but one of the things that you offer to other practices is your practice management matter service to support other practice managers. As a general broad brush feel, what is the general standard of practice management based on your experience across the country in dental practices?
It really does vary. There's, especially over the last sort of couple of years, when I was talking to Chris at the, can't remember which show it was, XL, was it? Might have been XL.
It was, So
many. There's been a lot of practice managers come from external industries. So a lot of, it's the right people, they've got management experience, leadership experience, all those things. But they've not got the, as one of my clients put it, she's not got the dental peculiarities. I'm like, that's really great. Yeah, there's a lot of those. And, it's mentoring and helping them, but it can be anything from, what is an NHS contract? What is the patient journey? What is the business side of things? All these things. And then there's actually also training people to pick the phone up correctly.
Yeah.
There's managers, unfortunately, that are still trying to do reception and trying to nurse and do the practice management at the same time. But it's a real contrast from very basic through to the business development side, and it's huge.
Out of interest, Lisa, the people that you've seen join the profession that have kind of practice management experience that might be from the hospitality industry or other industries, do those people pick up the dental bit quite quickly and go on to be better practice managers, or is it quite challenging for them to adopt those dental nuances when they've come from sectors outside of dentistry?
A little bit of a mixture, I suppose, really. I mean, trying to teach somebody how to be a good leader is hard, because I do think that that isn't just something you watch a webinar about and I've got it. And that's got to come from personality and that kind of thing as well. Some are fine. Some, if they've got some of those traits, that's brilliant. The dental bit's not that difficult. I kind of do like a development program with them and kind of fill in all the gaps of, okay, this is what this is. The thing that they seem to come more panicked about and more unstuck with is things like compliance. But for me, compliance isn't really the core practice manager's role. But I have to pull myself back and go, okay, so I don't have to do compliance and I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that, but this is what most practice managers do. So whether it's rotas, holidays, all sorts of things like that, the panics that they have are the things that actually they should be outsourcing. I outsource to...
They're processes, aren't they? That's it. A lot of them are just processes. It's not the... and making sure that it's done, not you doing it. I think that you're dead right in the fact of what you've got to encapsulate is not the doing bit, but the bits that you've got to teach them that are the hard bits to teach them.
Yeah, and it is a complete mix, but it's good. I mean, I'm grateful to the practices who recognise that their practice manager may need some support, so they get me on board to be their mentor. Do you find, Lisa? Do you find there's some you just can't, I'm not unteachable? Would that be the right word?
Beyond
there's
help. Chris is being very polite. Beyond help.
There's some people that you go and go, no, that's it. There's no way. There's no way.
I mean, hopefully, I choose not to work with those clients.
Yeah.
If their ways are not in line with mine, I'm not saying mine are perfect. I'm 100% right, but I sometimes get asked. It's different mindset and different culture, and it's very different up and down the country. So I've had clients who have come to me and said, okay, what I need is decent systems put in place for reception, for KPIs, for meetings, for all these different... I want you to put every system in that you can think of. And I said, well, okay, so you've got a high turnover of staff. Yes. And I said, well, why is that? And, I'm going to kick myself now, but their reasoning is that I've got my standards too high and nobody's good enough. Right. Which isn't the way I was obviously meaning it when I spoke about it before. But they want to concentrate on the systems because people are going and not stopping. So they're relying...
Yeah. So if they manage to keep the people on board, then the systems and processes would be not the issue that it is, but you've got to have the system and process because the turnover's so great. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's I walk away at that point because for me, they need to recognise, or I refer them to Mark Topley actually. On his Good Boss course. Come back to me after that if you want to. But for me, the team are our biggest asset.
But for anybody, you would appreciate this, and anybody who's in business would understand that 80% of all the things that we would deal with as a business leader are people related. It's most of our job is working with people, because if you get the people aligned and the people doing the right sort of job, everything else just falls into place. So if you're obsessing about systems and processes and you're neglecting your people, you're walking into a fire. It's the wrong end of the business to be.
Yeah, if they're not willing to change, if it's not working, bring in a coach in or putting systems in place is not going to change a thing. No,
absolutely. Yeah, well, like you were saying, like you were just saying about compliance. You just outsource it. There's some. One thing that dentistry is fabulous for is there are amazing support services out there. There's loads of people that have bespoke services to support dentists on the business side of things. So you can outsource that. You don't need to stress about that. It's there's somebody who can do that.
It's quite interesting, isn't it, when we talk to people growing their practices and we sort of say to them, what you really need to do is to stop doing this all yourself. Actually engage someone who really, whether it be someone in your team or someone new, to be able to enable you to drive the business forward. But it is going to cost you money. It's a cost that you've got to incur before you get to the end result. But quite often they'll go, oh no, I don't want to spend that amount of money.
And it's considering that, you guys are the experts here, but, when you look at people's hourly rates and things, you kind of like, that's like 1 hour a month of your earning time.
Yeah.
So, this is the thing. I did an article last week and I was having another little rant about people not outsourcing, because I said quite often I'll go on to a forum, a Facebook forum, and I don't comment very often because I don't like getting drawn into these things. But you'll get someone asking for my bugbear is, has anybody got a fire risk assessment template type of situation? Yeah. And I don't mean to be condescending there, because these practice managers are going on looking for genuine support. And it makes me want to sometimes go on to one of the dentist forums and go, right, own up. Who is this practice manager? Who do they belong to? Get them some bloody help. She's there touting for risk assessments and, legal things or contracts. And I'm going, this is scary. And I know, if it's an affordability thing, maybe. I don't think it is in a lot of the cases. I think it's a lack of understanding of how important it is and actually how it can grow your business. So my view is, I didn't go to university to learn how to be an accountant, to do marketing, to be a lawyer. Dentists, quite often are sometimes expecting practice managers to be all of them things.
But also, I think you can only reasonably expect to be paid the pay rate for the job you're doing in that moment in time. So if you're somebody who is, tidying up the practice at the end of the day, whereas you could employ a cleaner, in that moment, you can only reasonably expect to be paid the same pay rate as a cleaner. And going back to that point about a dentist, if a dentist is doing anything other than dentistry, they can't reasonably expect to earn £250 to £300 an hour. So like you say, if you convert their time back into surgery time, buying in compliance as opposed to it being done kind of behind the scenes on an ad hoc basis actually makes good financial sense, as well as freeing the individual up to do the bit they're really good at as well.
Well, 100%. I mean, I don't enjoy compliance, but as the CQ, as it all started to become a lot, my view was, completely respect CQC. I think it's a great thing and it keeps everybody safe and happy. And there's, it's that standardization scenario. But I know that my time spent doing compliance wasn't growing the business. Now, I know that we can't do the business without the compliance. But if you're getting your compliance done, like, getting an outsourced company to support a few of the nurses that take on that responsibility. And, you can overview it, but if the audits and all of that is done by other people, the practice manager's time, as you said, the dentist's time's best in surgery, the practice manager's time is best at developing and growing the business. Yeah. So it actually shows on the bank balance. I just don't understand the misuse of people within the teams who are very capable sometimes.
One of the byproducts,
one of the capabilities, that's the problem.
One of the byproducts of you being good at your job and helping the guys manage a good business is winning awards. And at Old Surgery Dental Practice over the years, you won many awards, which is lovely. And Chris and I were at the Private Dentistry Awards just last week, sort of celebrating with other people winning awards. On the face of it, you stand up, you get your plaque, you wave it around. It's a good feeling. For somebody that's been in a practice that's won many awards over the years, from a kind of team, patient, PR point of view, what are kind of the layers of why awards are important in dentistry from your point of view?
Well, it's always a little bit of a, it's a subject that divides the the industry a little bit, isn't it? Can get quite volatile on Facebook sometimes.
It can.
And for us, we wanted to do it as a marketing strategy. We'd become, a private practice, and built as a private practice. And, you can't sit still. We see people in the area that are catching on to actually, we need to do bigger and better things and offer more. So I suppose we kind of went into the awards initially as kind of setting us apart. We're not saying we're the best practice UK. We're not saying we provide the best customer care UK. All we're saying is we've been recognised for that. So from a team point of view, I mean, it's helped so much with recruitment over the years.
It's interesting.
People want to work in award-winning practice.
That's true, I suppose, isn't it?
It is, no matter what that might mean to people, for that alone, it's been fantastic. Patients do like it. We only ever really entered categories such as best patient care, best team, and things like we did an employer one. And actually, it was really, we laughed about this the other day because on one night we ended up getting 4 on one occasion.
This is greedy.
And well, we didn't expect to get anything, so we'd actually got a bit drunk, believe it or not. And we were the way they'd been in order. We actually got up one after another, and it was like, we're getting up again. And anyway, we had a lot of celebrations that night. Slightly embarrassing that actually we came home with no awards because we actually lost.
Excellent.
That was a big night.
Bit embarrassing having to ring up and say, could I order another one?
Yeah. Did anyone hand in?
Well, they were like, well, you've obviously celebrated in style, so that's absolutely fine. So the awards have been fantastic for us, and individual team members, hygienists and things like that. We've not done them for quite a few years because I'm actually a judge for them now, so it's quite
look a bit odd, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I'm just wondering about the 4 people who've got those awards you left.
Exactly, yeah.
Someone got one at home.
Sitting on a mantelpiece somewhere.
It must be in the toilet, someone's toilet.
Yeah, it's like the Oscar or whatever.
It's interesting the point you make, particularly because of the ongoing recruitment issues in dentistry. I hadn't thought about people wanting to work in practices that are award-winning. Yeah. So from a recruitment point of view, it gives you an edge over some other practices because it, like you say, I know it divides the profession in many ways, but it is that kind of external view that someone's kind of giving you a tick, which is great.
It's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's and being a judge, it's I know that the way I do my judging is. You sometimes think, it's quite difficult because there's so many good entries, there's so many fantastic people, and you kind of want to give it to as many as you can. But they get the recognition, and actually, do you know what? People need to, just see it for what it is and see it as a little celebration. Yeah. People don't win according to how many seats are sold, although I was supposed to go on Friday and I've not been feeling great, so I kind of thought, right, I'll swerve that one because I know it would have been lively.
It wasn't. It's never a short night.
Lively.
And there
what a lovely note.
There
a lively
night. Alcohol drunk as well.
Exactly. And you do sometimes get a little bit accosted as to why someone hasn't won.
Yeah.
Which I understand because, it's great that they're passionate about their practice. Everyone wants to feel that the practice is the best, So it's, I like the awards. The dentistry, I think it's Leicester in a couple of weeks.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's the dentistry one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that takes Lively to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember we went back to we couldn't work out why we couldn't get in our rooms one night after the Leicester Awards and realised we'd got the right room number but the wrong hotel.
Impressive.
This was a few years ago. I'm very sensible these days.
Quite impressive. Imagine if you got in.
I was going to say there's some form, isn't there, from different award nights.
Just handing out your room key.
But you know what? It's so nice to see all the industry. Not all the industry, but a lot of the industry come together, have a good dance, embarrass ourselves a little bit, and actually just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. I think they are. I think as evenings, they are uplifting. And I think it shows, for me, it's a really good barometer for the health of the profession. Yeah. There's a lot of people there enjoying themselves.
Not so good for your liver, though.
No, and we're celebrating success, which is good. Another string to your bow is being president of Adam as well. Obviously, the support for practice managers. How's that developed over the years? Because I kind of almost see that kind of developing alongside your career in many ways. Because obviously, empowering practice managers is a big part of that organisation.
Yeah, I think so. That kind of came about. I don't even know when it came about now. Maybe about 2014, 2015. I'd also at that time won quite a few practice manager awards, that kind of thing. And I got approached to see if I'd wanted to get involved in the Practice Managers Association. So going back to what I was saying earlier about I started as a practice manager, in my early 20s, I reached out for what was BDPMA, British Dental Practice Managers.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
At the time.
That name, yeah.
And they were lovely, but I was kind of looked at as and who are you and why do you think you can do this?
Oh, that's interesting.
And I didn't know, and I just didn't feel that there was support out there for people that are just starting off, and age shouldn't be a problem, it's if you're doing it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Experience does help. But we all got to start somewhere. And I was very lucky with Steve. We made lots of mistakes together, and we learned how to do things right. Went on various courses with some really great people, Sim Goldblum and Carl Parnell, Lester. I've forgotten his surname. Elman.
Lester Elman.
Oh, Lester Elman.
Yeah,
There was Elman.
Yeah.
So I many years ago did some business courses, dental business courses with them, and they were so scary, but they were really good, and they taught me so much. So I got that opportunity. So when the Practice Managers Association became Adam a few years before I got involved with it, they had the right idea, because dental administrators can be compliance, it can be reception managers. There's so many different, facets to it now. So I got involved, and then all of a sudden I went to a show and got told that this is my inauguration.
Excellent.
I was like, oh, what am I doing? So I become president, and that was a messy night. That was a very messy night, which actually ended.
More walls left behind.
Yeah. So I think that night. So you all know Prempal. Yeah. So it ended up in Prempal getting this German rapper to do a rap about my inauguration.
Interesting.
This is dentistry. This is our peculiarity. So I become president and started trying to help other practice managers, in a way that was non-judgy, in the way that I didn't have it, I suppose. And then it went from there, and then people such as Practice Plan and other companies started asking if I would do some speaking events and training events. And then it went to dentists actually saying, well, could you come into my practice? And it's like, well, obviously I can't do that as part of Adam, because, Adam is a non-for-profit organisation, and we do a lot with some really great sponsors. So I needed to sort of separate that out a little bit. Practice Management Matters was, it basically happened by accident, and I developed a support program to go into practices and help them. I do individual training days, but mostly it's practice manager mentoring. I got called Mary Poppins, and then during COVID it went to Nanny McPhee. It was a bit insulting.
Yeah.
But it's the idea is that I go in and I help put the systems in place, and keep a little eye on them, but I'm there as long as they need me to be.
I was going to say, Lisa, what would you say is needed to be successful in your world? Because you've obviously had great success, and you've worked with lots of practice managers and brought them on as well. What would you say the key ingredients are to be successful in your world?
I think you've got to be confident, because it's, it's not the easiest of industries. There's lot of egos, a lot of very deserved egos, to be perfectly honest. So
and undeserved ego.
Yeah.
You quite often have a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, can I do this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can do this. So I suppose confidence and actually having real experience gives you that confidence to be able to help other people, because it's in you, isn't it? It's not something that you're just reading about, and
it's part of your DNA.
Yeah, and I think just
like I say, you can't go on a course. You can't go on a course to learn resilience, can you? No. You need to kind of go.
Or to learn people.
Funny you say that. Yeah. Funny you should say that. I've got one next year about that. But yeah, it's very relatable to practice management. But yeah, I think it's just try and be really decent to people, and not just within your teams, but actually in the whole industry, help people, not for any gain for yourself. And it kind of, just grows from there, really. It's not all about money. It's not all about, it is, my thing was, I wanted to help people in the way that I hadn't had that help when I started out as a practice manager.
Yeah. Talking to helping people, we said at the very beginning that you've got mates who are ex-SAS soldiers, and you run training days with these ex-Special Forces guys. Is that linked to dentistry in any way? How did it come about? What do you do? There's so many questions on that. What's all that about?
It's a bit odd, I think.
I can't tell you, I should have to kill you.
I'm actually going out for a curry with them on Friday night at BACD. So I got introduced. So for many people will probably have heard of Ian Hutchinson. Ian is a specialist orthodontist. Yeah. Ian was also a dentist that was in the papers and on the news because he had an unfortunate patient that was stalking him for 3 years. Was found outside his house with crossbow, polyed up car, chloroform, a book of what he's been doing for 3 years, just your worst nightmare. And it was an ex-patient that wasn't happy, so make sure you deal with them complaints properly.
Yeah, one extreme to another.
I like the understatement. Exactly. It wasn't happy.
Yeah, customers so old. But anyway, so Ian obviously had a really difficult time with that situation, and Ian went to it's called Stoic Events, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and it's two guys called Paddy Vaughan and Colin McLaughlin. So Colin was one of the guys that was the original Who Dares Wins,
right?
The telly, and then I didn't really know what to expect, but Ian had got involved with them and could see the links between, special forces and dental practices, and especially with what he's been through, it's like how are we supposed to be resilient when we feel battered quite a lot? So I originally went on a course with Steve, my principal from the practice, and we turned up in a room of, I think it was Manchester somewhere. We turned up in a room. There was about 15 dentists and me, and you could feel the tension in the room. It's like, none of us know. Are we going to be made to do press ups? Or we didn't really know. I had checked, and they assured me that it didn't involve that.
There was no hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah. So in walks Paddy and Colin, and the presence, is pretty real, to be honest. You're kind of like, anyway, we started talking about conflict. So conflict that we can relate to within our teams, not obviously on the battlefield, but practices, and teams have a lot of conflict with patients, conflict with teams, but quite often, it's also then applied to things like patient objections over treatment plans.
Yeah.
So it's working out a lot of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So the day was great. It was also, they took all our phones off us at one point, and we did talk about things that, they'd experienced, which was really interesting as well. Mm-hmm. But it was actually trying to get in our heads. It was basically start feeling comfortable being uncomfortable. How do we do that?
Yeah.
An awkward conversation with a patient, or how do you, discipline someone without kind of wanting to die inside a little bit.
Mm.
So we started talking at that point and realised that there was so many ways that we can transfer those skills, whether it's, for me, it's, they describe things as they have a mission, and what's more important, the planning and the preparation, the actual mission, or the debrief, hostage situation, which one of those is most important? And to be honest, you're kind of like, well, which is it? And it's the doing, because that, a debrief and a planning, the hostage is still there, and it just completely changed the way I looked at things and thought about things. So we just, it went from there really. So sort of Hutch and Colin and Paddy, we then gone on to talk about these other courses that we want to do. And they do some physical courses. You can visit them up in Inverness, I think they are, and have team training days. But it's the value of what's in your head. And I think what kind of, it was like penny drop situations, so I was there with my principal and we were talking about IQ versus EQ. So a lot of dentists are very, very intelligent. They've always had this pathway to follow with education and, even becoming dentists, they've got the CPD, that kind of thing. So that part of their brain takes over more of their emotional intelligence than it probably should. So quite often what you find is that they need a practice manager to be the, but that's very good. When you're dealing with a patient complaint, a dentist will go into all the intricacies about the treatment and whereas somebody with more emotional intelligence will actually go, right, what does the patient want here? What do they need
feel
here?
Yeah. How do we put it right? Yeah.
Exactly. Or if you're marketing, a dentist might go, "Oh, I've got this scanner and whereas
it's nothing.
Practice manager will be like, "We're selling, treatments. We want to get across how they're going to feel. We don't care what the process is."
Yeah. What's the patient benefit of us having that piece of kit as opposed to going on about the technicalities of it?
Or you might be in a park at a practice.
And this is the thing, and one thing that we've done a lot in our practice is a lot of training on profiling. So trying to profile the team and patients. So, what kind of personalities are within our teams? Is it dominant people? I'm sure everyone's heard about the DISC profiling, but also matching patients with the right dentist based on that as well. Yeah. I'm not saying that, like Steve's quite a direct person. He's, I want this done, need it then, very, very straightforward as I am. But we know sometimes when we're talking to someone that needs detail that we have to adjust ourselves.
So
definitely.
It's
the same with patients and take up of treatments. This patient, if they are quite a nervous patient or, very cautious about spending money or nervous about treatment or anything, we know that you have to modify your behaviour. And it's the same with the team. You have to be different things to different people, don't you? And I think that's what brings the team.
I think they're really valuable lessons from a background and experience that isn't got much of an obvious crossover into dentistry.
They're life skills, aren't they? Yeah. They're life skills.
Yeah, and the courses that Paddy and Colin run, they're actually at the BACD offering profiling, and they do it. I know we've got practice boot camps, planned for next year, where we want the whole teams to come along and have their own. It won't be everyone. This is what you're gonna. This is what you all need to learn. It'll be dentists doing the dentisty thing. Sitting there doing role play. When you do role play with somebody like Paddy, you kind of just want to crawl under the table. He's fantastic, and he does put you in a very uncomfortable position. But I remember the first time I did one of their day courses, a really lovely dentist come and sat next to me, and he said, "You don't know me, but I know you, and I feel comfortable sat next to you because I'm scared." I'm like, okay. Thinking, right, that's fine. And you could see throughout the day how uncomfortable he was, to the point where you almost thought you might cry. Honestly, And as the day went on, you could see his confidence building. And at the end, it was like, oh my God, he was a different person. And
what a powerful day.
It was a really powerful day. And it changed a lot for me. And I know that most people in that room as well.
Sounds like a bank sales course.
It sounds great. I'm down on Friday to the BACD. So
I'll introduce you.
I'd love to meet the guys. They sound like an interesting couple of guys.
Make sure you wear a balaclava or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can't see you.
Yeah, they sound terrifying, but perhaps I'll put on my big boy pants that day.
Do you know what? They'll kill me for saying this. They're absolute softies when you get to know them. But
they can still kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Lisa, it's been wonderful.
So they crash through the windows in the surgery.
Experience you've got, everything. Like I say, I think there's
That's
so
really
many
good.
learnings in there for people. So thank you for your time. We wrap up in the same way. We always ask our guests the same 2 questions. So the first question we've got for you is: if you could be a fly on the wall with somebody in a certain situation,
what would that situation be? Yeah.
Oh, do you know? I'd forgotten that you were going to ask me this, and I was asking some of the girls before, and I think we were talking about maybe the palace, to get the actual gossip of what's going on.
Okay, interesting.
Now that the Queen's not there, how's Charles managing that? It's not the most exciting, but God, how interesting would that be?
Is it really like The Crown?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, do the royals burp? Do they, it's kind of those real silly things that you kind of like would love to know.
Well, it's like on a Sunday afternoon, they say, right, who wants to go with hide and seek? Go and hide. 4 hours later.
186 rooms later or something.
Or did they go, right, quiet now because Emmerdale's on?
Yeah.
I guess they are, at a base level, they are just people,
just humans,
as a
aren't
family,
they, really?
aren't they? I'm sure a lot of what they do is quite mundane and the same sort of things as we do.
It's probably how they belch.
That's right, yeah. I'm sure somebody belches for the king.
Gives them a pat on the back. Well done.
And our follow-up is: if you could meet somebody, if you were given the opportunity to sit down and have, I was going to say a cup of coffee, but it might be a glass of wine with somebody, who would you like to meet?
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking Elvis might be pretty good, actually, because I just watched that film last week, the new one.
It's supposed to be very good, that film, isn't it?
Colonel Tom Parker,
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So it would be Elvis. But one of the things one of my girls said was, well, it'd be the Queen. And, it'd be lovely to ask her if she enjoyed her send-off.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I just, one of the others went, that's really offensive. And I'm like, is it offensive? I'm like, I don't think it's offensive. But it was a nice send-off.
But I see the point, because actually she also designed it all herself. She was involved in all of the details. So there would be a point that kind of says she designed it, and did they execute it in the way that she hoped it to be done? So I can see that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure actually a lot of people when they're dead. Oh no, that's wrong. That's just going to work. They would like to see how their funerals went. I'd have thought. Do you know what I mean? I'd have thought a lot of people think, I wonder, did 100 people or 4 turn up? What did people say? I bet there's a lot of people. If you ask that question, I bet a lot of people would go, actually, it'd be really quite nice if I could.
Yeah.
It's almost like the people who say, I'm going to have my funeral before I'm dead. So people can say nice things.
Like whoever's the most sad is the ones you'll leave the most money to, maybe.
Yeah.
And the ones that really don't care, you're kind of like, right, well,
tough.
they get nothing.
Yeah, perhaps a little sliding scale based on
Yeah. Who got upset most?
You earned another 20 quid today. Well done. Yeah. Oh, good. Lisa, it's been a joy. It's been an absolute joy.
It's been brilliant. Thank you.
You're a massive character. You've got great stories, and we wish you ongoing success. Because, like I say, you're doing a great job. And I think for practice managers across the country, I think they all look up to you and take a lot of energy and confidence in the work you do. So
and could learn so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Lovely. And all being well, hopefully I'll see you on Friday then, which would be nice.
Yes, definitely.
Cool.
Cheers,
Excellent.
Lisa.
Lovely. Cheers, Lisa.
Bye.
Look after yourself.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.